Today we will discuss about the role of public sector in industrial development. See, this is in line with the discussion we had in our previous class about new industrial policy 1991, the background which we have studied, that after independence, post independence development strategy, we mainly gave importance to uh, government sector or public sector. So this basically means that we are going back there, and how the role of public sector changed from post independence period till the economic reform period. How did it change is what we are going to see, or why did it change is what we are going to see today. So the role of public sector in industrial development. See, the basic line of the state intervention or government intervention, or giving more trust to government sector, was given by this concept was given by Keynes. So Keynes, so I have to do a bit of macroeconomics here. Let's go back to a time when, during 1930s of Great Depression time, macroeconomics was developed by Keynes. He came out and brutally criticized the microeconomists, or so-called classicals. He said that the theories given by classicals or microeconomists were entirely wrong. That is why we had to face this 1930s Great Depression, which led to mass unemployment and lack of demand during that period of time. So he said that the theories of classicals were wrong. That is why we had Great Depression and mass unemployment. So he believed that he criticized the microeconomists or classicals on the basis of their two sector model. We have studied the circular flow of income. We studied that the two sector model, in which only the firm and the household is involved. So that entire two sector closed economy model is wrong according to Keynes. He believed that government has to be added up as a party. It should be a three sector model where firm, household and government are the three parties involved. Government interventions are very much necessary. That is why he was against the laissez-faire policy of classicals. No government interventions was critically evaluated by Keynes, and he came out telling that government intervention or role of public sector is very important for especially developing countries like India. So he said that basically all the microeconomist theory were basically for the capitalist and developed economy, which is not going to work for developing nations. So basically the state intervention or role of public sector, giving more importance to public sector concept, was originated by or propounded by Keynes. So public sector occupies a significant place to achieve systematic and planned growth, especially in countries like India, developing countries like India, because these countries, most probably they will be in a trap of vicious circle of poverty. Vicious circle of poverty basically mean, the slogan behind vicious circle of poverty is that a country is poor because it is poor. It's a cycle. Poverty is caused by poverty. Let's start with a country like India, where capital is said to be one of the scarce resources. So we lack in capital. So when we lack in capital, our investment will be less. When our investment is less, the production will be low. When there is no much production, unemployment will automatically come down. When people are not being employed, their income will be low. When income is low, they don't demand much. When we don't demand, producers won't have the urge to produce goods, so the production will come down, or they will invest less. So we are reaching the point where we started, that is low investment. So it's a cycle. Low investment causing low investment, that is poverty causing poverty. This is a vicious circle, a circle which continues. Poverty cycle keep on continuing in developing countries. It's like a trap. Developing country like India is in this vicious circle of poverty ka trap. only a public sector or only government can do huge investment to cut down this vicious circle of poverty by investing in basic and key industries like iron and steel. So but problem is, if you are giving it to private sector will not be able to muster this huge resources required for the development of industrial sector. But public sector on the other hand can provide the minimum push to break this trap or break the cycle of vicious circle and bring the economy to the path of self-sustained growth. So it is well recognized that until and unless public sector plays an important or positive role in industrial development, a sound foundation for industrial structure cannot be laid down in countries like India. Okay, so the role, what all other helps does public sector do in economy? How does giving more importance to public sector or giving more importance to government enterprises help in industrial development of a country? First of all, it will generate employment. Public sector is the largest employer in organized sector. Let's not talk about unorganized sector. Organized sector, public sector is the largest employer. For example, railways. It is said that out of 243 lakh workers, about 194 lakh workers are employed in organized public sector, right? With the nationalization of this bank and mines and all, again there has been significant improvement in the position of public sector. So employment generation is one thing good about public sector enterprises, especially when it comes to industries. Second is their share in GDP. In first lesson itself we have studied about the share of different sectors of economy, where agriculture contribute 15.4% of GDP or national income in India. 23% of the GDP is being contributed by industries. 61.5% of GDP is being contributed by services. So services is the largest contributor of GDP or national income to the country. After service sector, it is industries. We have already studied that there is a paradox here, that agriculture, more than 60% of the people rely on agriculture for employment, but agriculture is the least contributing sector towards national income. So it is industries that industries have a real scope more than that of service sector. If you're really doing good or giving a strong base for industries have better scope of employment and GDP than that of service sector actually, because we don't have a strong basic industries. That is why we are depending on services, right? So the contribution of GDP from the part of industries is really high, and the scope of employment and GDP is also really high in industries. See, there are theories in economics like surplus labor theory by Lewis. You can read if you want. Lewis was like, there is surplus labors in agriculture sector which is burdening the agriculture sector. So the surplus labor or disguised labor or invisible labor who are actually underemployed in agriculture sector, who are bringing the lack of productivity to the or reduction in productivity in agriculture sector, can be transferred from agriculture sector to the industrial sector, is what the surplus labor theory is all about. So these theories give more stress that industries have to be developed so that there will be more employment generation and these sectors will contribute more to the GDP. That is another role of public sector enterprises. Next, if we are giving more importance to public sector, it will lead to sustainable development of natural resources. So one thing has to be noted, that many of the underdeveloped countries are poor not because they have poor stock of natural resources. They are poor because these natural resources are not properly developed or extracted. You can see that many of the South African nations, they are rich in resources. They are rich in natural resources, but they are still one of the poorest countries in the world. Why? Because they don't have the technology. They are underutilizing their natural resources. They don't know how to extract the natural resources and make use of it to enhance their development, right? So it is sustainable natural resources. Development of natural resources is very important, and it can be only done by public sector. Because if we are giving it to private sector often tend to exploit these natural resources, because they always try to maximize their profit for their personal betterment. They try to exploit the natural resources. They often tend to misuse it or underuse it. Therefore, public sector can go long way in considering optimum utilization of natural resources in an efficient way, right? That is why many of the industries are not being given some of the natural, like trolling. Government do interfere, like giving private parties more influence over certain areas will reduce or deplete the natural resources. Overgrazing of animals, or contaminating the sea water, or uh, like depleting the fish in the sea, so that there is government is interfering in a way and telling them to stop fishing for a certain period of time, so that the fish species will again be regenerated in the sea. So government intervention will help in sustainable development of natural resources, which will not be possible with private enterprises. Another role why we are giving importance to public sector is welfare oriented development. The first and foremost necessity of public sector is that it is development oriented, mostly in underdeveloped countries, because they have their grounds on planned economic growth and redistributive justice. That is, they when government or public sector is given importance, there will be less inequality in the economy, right? It will help to break the vicious circle of poverty, and thus by utilizing the resources in an efficient manner. So a special attention will be given to consumer goods. Special attention will be given to small village and small town, and strengthening them by developing small scale industries, and agriculture sector will be given importance. So government should provide facilities for the welfare motive, because if private sectors are given this welfare, their only motive is to maximize their profit. So you cannot expect them to go to interiors of India, or go to village or small towns to develop that community. They are not going to do that. So only public sector can undertake welfare oriented development. Another is infrastructure development. Development of an economy entirely depend upon the infrastructural developments or facilities given by that economy. Let it be agriculture, let it be the basic key industries, let it be the social industry, which includes education and all. It cannot develop unless there is sufficient irrigation infrastructure facilities. Suppose if it has to be agriculture, it has to be, or if any kind, water supply has to be there for industries, power should be there, energy should be there, good roads, transportation facilities, warehousing facilities, every kind of infrastructure facility should be there for smooth industrial development. So this infrastructural development can be only done by government. Private parties will not be involved in this, because maintaining infrastructure for the development of a country is not the main aim of private sectors, because it will take huge cost of production will be there. To setting up of road and transportation facilities, it will be given to government, because huge money has to be invested into it, and the gestation period of these projects are really long. It will take suppose a road is being built, and you cannot expect the return within a year and all. Slowly, only when roads are developed, slowly industries will develop. It will develop into an housing colony sector. Industries will come up, so it will take time. So only government can wait for so long, because private capitalists, they always are interested in immediate benefits, so they cannot afford to invest in infrastructure. Only public sector can do that, right? You must have heard about the GQ project in back in 1999. It was a flagship program of Atal Bihari Vajpayee NDA government. That is Golden Quadrilateral project. That is the transport network between the major cities. Right, it is the largest highway project of India. That it tried to connect the different cities in the country, like highways like from Delhi to Kolkata, Chennai to Mumbai, Kolkata to Chennai, Mumbai to Delhi. So, connecting major cities of the world through road of India, through road was developed by this GQ project. So, which it's a kind of infrastructure facility developed by the government which needed huge investment. They are trying to connect north to south and east to west. Let's forget about the corruption involved in it. Let's forget about the isolation of northeast part. So let's forget about all those part, but still the infrastructure development done by government was commendable, and the increase in production and increase in industrial development happened due to this project is also really noteworthy. Okay, so another role of uh, public sector is effective control over economy by government. There has to be control of government over the economy, because it is very important. Only when you have control over the economy you will get desired result. You set the predetermined target will be set by the government, that they are going to achieve 5% or 8% growth rate that year, and they have to plan, they have to manage, they have to change. Fiscal policies has to be changed, monetary policies by RBI has to be changed. So all these are process of growth which cannot be met without serious intervention from government. So a certain part of control has to be there over the government, and that control can only happen with by government or public sector. A balanced economic development. Public sector plays a crucial role to bring the balanced economic development in a country, not just sustainable development, balanced economic development. That is, they know they with the public sector enterprises can fill the gaps and gradually achieve self-reliance and self-sustained growth. I might have discussed in the class the doctrine of balanced growth by Nerks and Hirschman, and unbalanced growth. That is how huge investment is needed for maximum growth of the economy. Balanced growth theory says that all the sectors will have to be provided with equal investment, so that they will all develop in an equal scale. Suppose I am trying to invest 10 crore in agriculture, I have to give 10 crore to industry, I have to give 10 crore to service sector. So equal level of investment has to be given. That kind of development strategy is called balanced growth, where we are expecting growth to happen in each sector with equal amount of investment. Unbalanced growth theory stress on the trickle down effect. Trickle down effect is that we just invest in one key industry, the effect of that key industry will trickle down to other sector and benefit the other industries as well. Suppose I might have given the example in the class, like our college. Our college was situated in this K Narayanapura area without any facilities. There would not have been any transport facility. There would not have been these many shops. Houses will not have been there. So only when we invested, or the college invested in a social infrastructure type like school, after that the road might have come, water facilities coming, houses came up, all the hotels and restaurants near our colleges all came up just because of our college. So that is the kind of unbalanced growth. right? So a balanced economic development, or any that kind of huge investment, any growth strategy which need huge investment can only be done by government. Thus the role of public sector in industrial development is really, really important. This started changing after 1991. So after independence, that is post independence period, we were really afraid to open up our economy, and our main motive was welfare. So we stopped many of the private participation from many of the industries. We didn't allow the private parties to take part in many of the industrial sector. We kept reserves, right? We reserved many of the industries which can be only operated by government. After 1991, we changed this policy. There was a change in the role of public sector in India. First, the basic thing is, you can even continue writing the new industrial policy of 1991 here also. Okay, so the previous class explanation can be written over here also. The first way by major reform in public sector which happened after 1991 is privatization strategy, privatization of public enterprises. This can be done in two forms. First is disinvestment of government's equity in public sector undertakings. I have already told what is disinvestment, that is selling of shares of government or public sector undertakings. And another way by which we can privatize is through opening up of reserved areas which was only given for government, which is now opening up for private enterprises as well. Okay, these are the two ways by which we can privatize the public enterprises. So the basic background during 1991 was there was huge fiscal imbalance happening. There was growing balance of payment crisis, right? Our deficit was growing up. We didn't have the reserve at least to compensate for 2 weeks expenditure of a country. We were going so down. So at that period of time, our country was forced to approach IMF and World Bank for structural adjustment loans, just like the repurchasing facility, like our repo rate and all. Like repurchasing facility, we promised that we will repurchase the securities. We kept gold with them and we took the money as loan. So while giving such loans, IMF and World Bank had done it with certain conditions. They asked Indian government to open up, gradual opening up of or liberalizing their regulations by 1991. So that is one condition why we opened it. Okay, so privatization of public enterprises was changing. More privatization or more private parties were allowed to operate in areas which was previously only operated by government. Next is new industrial policy 1991. It was a turning point in industrial development in India. With this, most of the delicensing happened, deregulation happened, all other things which we have studied under in the previous class can be written here. I am not repeating it. LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization, you might be knowing. See, the whole phase of this economic reform, it did not start overnight in 1991. It actually started back in 1985 itself. The first phase of economic reform is actually said to be 1985-90. The process of privatization started during the government of Morarji Desai, and it was continued by Indira Gandhi's time. But it certainly gained momentum in Rajiv Gandhi's regime. Like in 1985, he became Prime Minister in 1985. It was Rajiv Gandhi who brought this new trend in economic policy of government. He suggested that he noticed that many of the public sector enterprises are running out of loss. There is lack of productivity. So he suggested that there has to be improvement in productivity, absorption of modern technology has to be there, because he was a learned man, he was educated man, he understood the importance of technology and fuller utilization of capacity. Okay, so I would like to quote his own words. what he said about public sector enterprises. Now what I'm going to say is what been said by Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. Public sector has spread into too many areas where it should not be. We will be developing our public sector to undertake jobs that private sectors cannot. But we could be opening up more to the private sector so that it can expand and the economy can grow more freely. This phrase is what been exactly given by Rajiv Gandhi, where he gave the basic thrust of the new economic policy of 1991 was greater importance for private sector, larger scope for private sector, which came out as industrial licensing, delicensing, export-import policy, technological upgradation happened, fiscal policies, foreign equity capital, the removal of control and restrictions, FDI was allowed. So, lot of fiscal and administrative regulations were taken away, simplified. Right? So, that was LPG. Okay, even though we gave more importance to Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh, the real economic policy, that this kind of a huge policy cannot start overnight. Just within a year they cannot come out with these kinds of economic policies. So it actually started back in 1985. First phase started. The real opening up or the full scale opening up of the economy happened during 1991. That is true. But this phase actually started back in 1985 under Rajiv Gandhi. So the due importance and appreciation has to be given to Rajiv Gandhi for the development which we attained after 1991. Okay, so there were a lot of various measures which was taken by government in various industries, like for example cement industry. It was totally decontrolled. The number of private sectors under this cement industry drastically increased after 1991. Additional license and licensing capacity was given more. Sugar industry, the share of free sale of sugar in open market was enhanced. There was no asset limit. Drugs, that is medicines, it was delicensed. Textile, introduction of new textile policy was there. Electronics, foreign trade. So there are a lot of places where we liberalized or government came out with new measures. So you can write all these under LPG. Reduction of reserved industries. See, this also I have discussed in 1991 policy, because when in 1956 industrial resolution, government has reserved 18 industries. These 18 industries I have discussed before. Only government can operate. No private participation was allowed. By 1991 it was reduced to 8. Now it is just 3. That is railway, defense and atomic energy is only can be solely called as a public sector enterprises. Other things are all everywhere. It is opened up for private parties to operate. So you cannot see, even though private sector bought efficiency, we cannot ignore the fact that the basic development of these industries were done by government only. They paved the way for development, but private parties bought it is equally important because they forwarded this development. Okay, so another change in role of public sector is that those industries which were just reserved for public sector was drastically reduced to 3 now. Only 3 public sector, that is railway, defense and atomic energy is only under government right now. All other industries which were earlier controlled by government was opened up for private participation. Next is disinvestment. Even this I have discussed. Disinvestment is selling of the shares, allowing more private parties to come in. Closure of sick industries. Sick industries are industries which were continuously having loss. Right. So those industries were asked to shut down. Most of the public sectors were going under this only. So what happened is that all the public sector units was reviewed by BIFR, that is Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. So they reviewed all, they looked over to the performance of all the public sector units, and they recommended that certain sick industries have to shut down because they were incurring loss continuously. Okay, so it started up like this. The Sick Industrial Companies Act was passed in 1985. We call it SICA, Special Provision Sick Industries, SICA, Sick Industrial Companies Act, which was amended in 1991 so that the continuously sick public sector enterprises will be referred to BIFR, that is Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. They will recommend that, they will look over these industries and find that these many industries are not working properly, they are not at all earning profit, or they are really incurring loss, so they have to shut down. So some of the examples can be given, like in 1994, BIFR ordered the closure of two public sector undertakings, namely the Mica Trading Corporation of India and Nagaland Pulp and Paper Company. Okay, so another thing over here is that a National Renewal Fund, NRF, was started or formed with the provision of 2,200 crores in it. Why was this renewal fund formed? Because when we are closing certain sick industries, the workers there will lose their job. So most of the workers were not happy with this closure of sick industries part. So they formed this NRF, National Renewal Fund, where there were schemes like voluntary separate scheme was there, voluntary retirement scheme was there. So the people who are not or losing their job will be given money, but this measure was very insufficient measure because most of them, this increased unemployment during that period of time. Next is MOU. MOU is Memorandum of Understanding. Memorandum of Understanding is that all these sick industries, one more chance was given to all these sick industries to revive themselves. Revival, for a chance of revival was given to these sick industries. Either this industry or the management was asked to sign this Memorandum of Understanding, where they were given a certain target or standards to meet. That is, these industries will be telling within 1 year or within 6 months you need to perform well and you need to earn this much of profit. Maybe 5% or 10% of profit has to be done by you or created by you. A target or standard was set to meet, and the sick industries were made to sign this MOU. And if they are not able to do that, they will be asked to shut down, or if they do well, they will be allowed to continue as industry. Or if they are not doing or not able to meet those standards or targets, they will be asked to shut down, or it will be disinvested. It will be taken over by the government and sold it in the open market, so that private parties can take that and make them work. Right? So this measure was taken in order to strengthen the existing system of monitoring public sector enterprises annually. The system of MOU was introduced in 1988-89. MOU is an effective interface between government and public sector enterprise management. Okay, so that is Memorandum of Understanding system. That was strengthened to look over the sick industries and giving them a chance to do better. So these are ways by which public sector changed after 1991. You can even write the explanation which is given in New Industrial Policy, which can be also used here.